Well, no, Gerald was John P. McIntosh, the MP in East Lothian's agent, and he later became a Labour organiser for the party nationally. He was the first women's officer of the Labour Party back in the innocent days before it occurred to us that the women's officer should perhaps possibly be a woman. A hugely loved member and member of staff of the Labour Party. But before he did all that, Gerald was an electrician, and we lost him some years ago to mesothelioma. But you know, you don't have to have been 40 years on the tools to suffer from this disease. Another constituent I knew well for a short time, Jim Anderson, was a teacher in my constituency for many, many years. But as a student, he had spent one summer labouring on the construction of Cockenzie Power Station, and 45 years later, mesothelioma came back and took him too. And in a blog that Julie wrote, I think just in the past few days, she said something which I think was very important about her dad and her uncle, that all they did was go to their work. They didn't do anything wrong, they just went to their work. This was a disease that they didn't inherit from their parents or grandparents. They didn't catch it from their neighbours. They didn't do it to themselves by drinking or smoking. Those who suffer from this disease simply went and built the power stations, the ships, the factories, and the homes that we all wanted. They did that to provide for their family. They did the right thing and paid a terrible price. And this is probably nonsense, but it's always seemed to me that this is a disease which takes the biggest men. I know it's not only men, but it seems to me that it picks out those men who have particularly the most life about them. Now, I didn't know Julie's dad, but I've heard her speak about him in the film My Life with Hibbs that she made, and he sounds like that kind of man who would fill the room with his strength and stature and love of life. And this is a disease which takes that strength and stature away, and then it takes your breath away, and then it takes your life away. So what do we do? I think we have to respond in three ways, and they've all been mentioned this evening. The first is to make those responsible take responsibility. The employers who carried on making their workforce work with asbestos when they knew fine what the consequence was. There are insurance companies who have tried every trick in the book to avoid paying compensation to families. Secondly, we have to respond by making sure it doesn't happen now and fight tooth and nail to defend health and safety at work so that we do not see this disease come back again in yet another wave. And finally, of course, we have to ensure that mesothelioma is given the medical attention that it needs. Correct the shameful lack of specific services highlighted by Anas Sarwar and by Kezia Dugdale. And that, I think, is the question we put to the Minister tonight.
I now call on Aileen Campbell to respond to the debate. Around 7 minutes, please, Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I'm pleased also to be able to close tonight's debate and, like all the other speakers this evening, congratulate Kezia Dugdale on bringing it to the Chamber. And also would like to put on record my welcome to Julie Roberts and her family to the Parliament and pay tribute to the family for what they've done in honour of Gordon and Jim to campaign for the improvements they feel is necessary to ensure that their lives haven't gone in vain and their untimely deaths can ensure improvements for others across our country. Members have talked about the impact this condition has had on their constituents, tragically cruel in so many ways, and many of whom have contracted the disease simply by going to work, or the partners who have contracted secondary mesothelioma through simply washing overalls. And like the motion states, I also pay tribute to the campaigners, the trade unions and the charities who have done so much to support those with mesothelioma who have brought about the improvements or changes needed and who have raised awareness of the condition. I also welcome the report by Mesothelioma UK's publication and their strategy aims seeking to make further improvements to care and support across the UK for those who contract mesothelioma, including raising the profile of it to prevent future cases of asbestos-related disease. And we recognise the work carried out by a host of other organisations, in addition to Mesothelioma UK, such as Clydeside Action on Asbestos, Tayside Action and Clydebank Action, who as Stuart McMillan pointed out, provide advice and support to people with asbestos-related disease. And also in the case of Clydeside Action on Asbestos, provide resource, as Stuart also mentioned, to GPs and doctors about the wider implications of this cancer. And it's on that theme of our wider approach to cancer that I want to make my remarks. We all know and recognise that progress has been made on treating cancer and survival rates. And this is largely thanks to the hard work and the endeavours of those who work across the NHS delivering our health and social care services. But we also know that there is room to do far more, particularly in cancers that have an unfortunate link to deprivation, or in this case, in terms of mesothelioma, cancer caught through industrial work. And in March of this year, the Scottish Government unveiled its Beating Cancer Ambition and Action Strategy, which serves as a blueprint for the future of cancer services in Scotland. And while the cancer strategy, as many have made reference to tonight, did not specifically mention mesothelioma, this should not be taken for a moment as a sign that improving the outcomes for people with mesothelioma have not been considered. The Scottish Government is acutely aware that early detection of all cancers, including mesothelioma, is crucial. The earlier that cancer can be diagnosed, the better the chance of a more positive outcome. And the cancer strategy will deliver £100 million worth of investment over 5 years to improve the prevention, the detection, diagnosis, treatment and aftercare for all those affected by cancer. And this will have a positive impact on all of those affected by cancer, including those with a confirmed diagnosis of mesothelioma. But of course, we will again consider the implications of the Mesothelioma UK report within that wider context of that wider strategy, and also look at what lessons can be considered within the context of the current waiting times work. Can I just, because I will give way, mesothelioma, though, for the benefit of the members, is under consideration for extending tumour audit for cancer waiting times, and I'll make a commitment to update members who have expressed an interest tonight on how that audit process goes.
Kezia Dugdale.
Thank you. Can I welcome the Minister's investment in the cancer strategy and also specifically her remarks about early detection and how important that is. I therefore wonder if tonight
you're aware that you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma?
Oh yeah, 6 different doctors. I had calcified asbestos in the lower 3 inches of my lung, the left lung. Well, it come in 50-pound bags, if I remember. And with a centrifugal pump pulling it, and our centrifugal pumps pulling them, and you would take and tear those sacks open or cut those sacks open and pour it in that hopper.
When you would open the bags, tell me what the material on the asbestos, tell me what the material looked like.
Powdery.
And when you dumped the bags, what was that like?
It was powdery and dust flying everywhere, and you throwed the bag over here in a pile.
What did the air around you look like when you poured the asbestos?
When you was mixing a lot of it up, it was dusty, and it would get all over you, and you certainly had to take a bath before you left the location.
Did you have any respiratory equipment or protection?
Never even thought about it.
Did anybody tell you that you needed to do it when you were handling the bill?
Asbestos exposure. Asbestos is a naturally occurring fibrous mineral that has been prized for thousands of years for its natural heat and flame-resistant properties. The natural fibers of asbestos can be easily separated into thin microscopic threads. While these unique properties make it quite useful, particularly in industrial situations, they also make it very dangerous. During their manufacturing, installation, and use, these microscopic fibers can break off and become airborne. When they are inhaled, the fibers become lodged in the lungs. Over time, this exposure can cause serious health problems. In fact, asbestos is so dangerous, it is estimated that up to 1/2 of the people who work around asbestos will develop some kind of asbestos-related disease. Throughout the Industrial Revolution and even into the modern times, people knew about the dangers of asbestos exposure. Unfortunately, it was not until the 1980s when industry finally got serious about protecting its workers. Unfortunately, this was far too late for thousands of workers at hundreds of job sites around the country. Asbestos is used in a variety of products and industries, including insulation, automotive clutches and brakes, paper, floor tiles, and more. Direct exposure is not the only way to develop an asbestos-related illness like mesothelioma. Family members of those who are directly exposed to asbestos are also at risk if they inhale fibers brought home on work clothes. To learn more about mesothelioma, visit the Mesothelioma Apply